time to start.
Great. Hello, welcome everybody to this new panel at Nextv Ad USA 2021. My name's Gavin Bridge and I'm a senior media analyst for Variety's Variety Intelligence platform. Today, no serious cross-screen advertising campaign would be conceivable without taking in consideration the thriving CTV marketplace. In fact, many would argue that connected TV devices, especially those large HD or 4K screens bolted to one of the walls in our living rooms, are becoming the most important pieces of hardware where television ad creative should be landing these days. Critically, connected TVs are uniquely positioned to offer marketers the kind of very granular audience data sets that they increasingly expect for their advanced advertising strategies. So to help us understand how this market is reacting to this unique opportunity and how it's dealing with existing challenges, we have brought together 5 leading representatives from 3 of the key OEM platforms who control a combined CTV footprint consisting of dozens of millions of households in the US and several millions more internationally. One of the world's largest media and entertainment groups and a streaming video specialist firm that is introducing a very novel technological approach to the AVOD CTV space. Let's introduce our panelists. First, we've got Jake Piasecki, who is the co-head of East Coast ad sales at Roku. Jake, hello. What I'm gonna do is go through a quick intro question, I suppose, for every panelist. So we'll get through everyone that way. So Jake, Roku's arguably the epitome of a connected TV device maker who's found in advertising a way to significantly expand its revenue streams, right? Like you've gone from just making hardware to just seeing the platform revenues kind of constantly growing and growing every quarterly earnings. And I think probably influencing a lot of the new people jumping into this space, to be honest, because they've seen exactly how well Roku's doing here. Yeah. I'd say to that point, you know, the fact that it just keeps growing and it's just widening from hardware revenues to, like, what is it now today? Over 80% of total sales revenues coming through platform revenue. What's driving this?
Well, I think the biggest piece of this, right, and thank you for that. We couldn't be more excited about what's happening at Roku today. I mean, we're the #1 streaming platform in the U.S. You know, as you mentioned, we're over 56 million active accounts now. That's massive scale across the streaming audience. In fact, almost 46% of all ad-supported impressions are taking place on a Roku device. So we have this really unprecedented view of what's happening in the streaming marketplace. We're also the #1 operating system in terms of smart TVs. We have a giant ACR footprint, which we'll talk. I know we're going to talk about in a bit. But the biggest piece of this is really consumer behavior, and you know, we see consumers continuing to cut the cord and/or just grow what they're doing in terms of viewing and watching streaming television. And that goes across the ecosystem, which is fantastic. I know there's a lot of our partners on here today as well. And the biggest piece of that, I think, is certainly you know, what consumers are looking for, and that's really great content. They're also looking for a much better viewing experience, and so TV streaming really provides that, and it's that better ad experience. It's fewer ads, it's more targeted ads, it's on-demand content, it's simpler contracts, it's cheaper options, you name it. And like I said, we have this really great view at Roku of what the streaming audiences are looking for. And the #1 search term on Roku devices is free. And so what that signals is that consumers, again, are looking for a better option than pay cable television, and that they're willing to trade their attention in order to watch ads to watch content for free. And so that's a huge piece of it. And that's really the big consumer side of things that's happening. We see that is going to continue to accelerate. It certainly was happening pre-COVID. Obviously, then the COVID protocol and staying at home certainly accelerated this, and we don't see it stopping. The other side of that coin, right, is so the consumers are doing, and what marketers and agencies are doing, which is great, is always following the consumer. And what we're seeing now is something that's great. It's just the continued investment in streaming television and finding this audience because of what can transact on streaming television are those lower funnel metrics, those digital metrics. Now, though, with brand safe, quality content that happens on the biggest screen in the house. And I like to steal this quote from Mike Law all the time, but he says it all the time, and I think it's really, really indicative of what's happening in this marketplace. Is that we need to buy TV like we're watching TV, and that sentiment really holds true. And I think that that's really what's buoying a huge piece of the streaming marketplace right now.
I said something similar in a report I wrote in September. I think I said, we really need TV executives to live like teenagers so they can understand. Just make them go on their phones for a week and see how content's consumed. And I think we'd end up with much better strategies. Thank you for that. We're going to move on quickly now to Katie Barrett, who's the head of programmatic at LG Ads. Katie, LG Ads came about from the integration of LG Smart TVs with Alfonso, an ad tech firm usually widely used by agencies and brands for cross-screen targeted campaigns and measurement. Can you give us a quick intro into how LG Ads is, well, what it does and how it's working?
Absolutely. And thank you so much for having me. I think that's a great question, because what we're seeing right now is record-breaking fast adoption. And to quote 30 Rock, we're the third heat. So before the matrimony of Alfonso and LG, the industry was missing over 20% of smart TV households if you were taking a device-centric approach. And now, using LG and the other OEMs in the marketplace, advertisers can effectively put back together the streaming puzzle using a handful of content and device providers, and then reach those missing audiences with little overlap. We have a lot of research that's showing that there is very little duplication between the major OEM households. If I have an LG that's bolted to my wall, it's not a Samsung. If I have Samsung that's bolted to my wall, it's not a Vizio, and the list goes on. And so when you take that and you pair it with our first party data, so we're collecting ACR data, or auto content recognition data, from 20 million households, which is 20% of the market, we're able to apply that, to our footprint and suppress any brand's commercial viewers. And so you combine that with little overlap from your other buys and ACR technology helping you to understand if a consumer has seen your commercial in their household, and you really get to define incrementality. I think another huge area, as Jake mentioned, is the free channels. So we're seeing our fast channels, LG channels plus, really take off. So you can go and scroll through. There's 350 linear-like stations that we're filling with a 2-minute pod every 30 minutes. Or you can go through the app itself, and it is now our 4th most popular app on our whole OS. And so you're really seeing this trend move more into AVOD, which is great, because that means that we can all sell some more ads. And so you take that fragmented viewership and our fast channels and our inventory, and you combine it with those data sets, and it really does create a sophisticated way of finding hard to reach audiences that are unduplicated and undiluted with data sets.
I am a big fast, I actually got called the fast master at work because I've done a lot of work on it. So I'm very happy to hear some of that about it doing well for LG, because I think it's definitely a very growing space that we're yet to see it reach its full incarnation, but it's definitely something that's helping to drive CTV use, because everything's so integrated these days. And it's just, I've heard it said before, you just turn a TV on, you buy a new TV as soon as you get the internet, there you go, you've got channels. You don't even have to plug anything in these days, which is great. I think this will actually perhaps relate a little bit to our next panelist, Nate McCormack. Nate, I might get this wrong. Senior Director of Ad Product Management at VIDAR. Do we not pronounce the extra A, or is it? I'm not 100% sure how you pronounce it. VIDAR.
You got it right. I'm impressed. Nice job.
So HighSense is the world's 3rd largest TV manufacturer. Am I getting this wrong as well? Do you make them for Roku, or have you made them? I feel like I've seen it.
Yeah, HighSense is a global manufacturer. They build TVs for multiple brands, and Vita is an operating system that is now one of their largest growing operating systems.
So Vita powers a lot of the different brands. So like you could have different brands on operating a HighSense TV, but Vita is the power behind it.
No, actually, to make the distinction, Vita is the operating system. HighSense is just the manufacturer. So think of Vita as the platform and a growing platform. if that makes sense.
That does make sense. Thank you. I'm going to quickly get through the remaining two because then we can get to the questions. Lauren Benedict is the SVP of Addressable Sales at Disney Ad Sales. Lauren, I think some people may be, oh, Disney's here on a conversation about CTV. But Hulu's is a massive brand that is on CTV, and ESPN Plus 2, I believe, has some ads. How does Disney currently assess the connected TV space?
Yeah, sure. Hi, everybody. And thank you for having me here as well. So just taking a little bit more of a macro perspective, I would say, the Walt Disney Company, we're storytellers at heart. We boast some of the best brands and IP, in the entertainment, sports, and now streaming business with the integration of Hulu into the Walt Disney Company. And so when you combine all of that, we reach 94% of adults 18 to 49. But sort of inclusive of everything we've been talking about here today, obviously, viewers are watching very differently than they ever have before. And so what we found with Hulu specifically, we've got 110 million ad-supported uniques, which is growing, leaps and bounds year over year. It's 56% growth over the course of the past 2 years. Those audiences, 60% of them are cord cutters. The majority or the rest are light TV viewers. So these audiences are all incremental and they're 100% addressable. And so what that means for us and how we look at CTV and how we partner with marketers, it's not about a and or, it's a must have. And that's what we saw in this upfront marketplace. Actually, we saw 40% of our revenue, move to the addressable or streaming space. And quite honestly, it can't be denied. I'd say the big piece for us is the data and insights. That's really like the through line of how we look at our business. And so all of the data that we sit on really powers everything that we do, whether it's thinking about our content distribution strategy and where content will be the most successful, whether it's a live or streaming space, as well as how we innovate from an ad experience standpoint, as well as obviously right ad, right viewer, right time. And so relevant to this conversation today is just thinking about how we leverage data with Disney Select, which is our first party audience segments. We've got over 1,000 of them to help advertisers reach and connect with the right viewer in the streaming space. And we can do that with scale and precision. And if we do that well, that's where we get sort of this effectiveness sort of halo. So that's kind of our secret sauce and how we look at it. And just to sort of put a bow on it, it's interesting, Jake, about the free comment. I think the other part is the value exchange, right? So making sure that if a consumer is paying for some sort of a subscription service, that the value that we're bringing back in terms of the content as well as the ad experience is one that is not sort of obtrusive, if you will. So that's kind of how we're looking at it at a 30,000 foot perspective.
It's very interesting. It just shows what a opportunity it is, because I think often the assumption is CTV is the domain of these companies have either really been bought by big media or have been, like a Roku or someone who have kind of created themselves, but like pulled themselves up and made their own niche there. But there's a lack of big media creating their own platforms. And I think this is where Disney is a very interesting person in this spot. Our final panelist is Scott Halpert, who is the Vice President of Ad Products and Business Development at Panthera. Scott, hello.
Hello.
My understanding of Panthera is it's a software company that's built a strong reputation after figuring out how to solve a key issue that was affecting some SVOD service providers. And now it looks like you're doing something similar for AVOD. Could you tell us briefly about Panthera and why you're now looking toward CTV and OTT advertising?
Yes, Gavin, thank you very much for having me. And it's a good question. And in particular, light of the fact that we're quite different from all the other companies that are represented on this panel. We are a 10-year-old software engineering business that's really focused on building solutions for both SVOD and AVOD publishers and platform companies. So our first product, which you alluded to, is a download product that enabled offline viewing of SVOD assets. During the pandemic and just before the pandemic, we started thinking a lot about how do we impact streaming and how do we impact the advertising part of the ecosystem. And we realized is that 80% of viewers were using our download product even when they were connected to Wi-Fi or cellular connections. And that was acutely made us more aware and acutely aware of the fact that they're using us, or they were using this old capability or this legacy capability to manage against viewing problems, right? So interruptions due to fluctuations in bandwidth, as an example. So over the past couple of years, we've really begun to focus on how do we bring forward and leverage our set of capabilities to produce better outcomes for end consumers. As part of that, we also began to evaluate our customers and look at where the growth in the market is. And that is in AVOD or ad-supported video on demand. And we recognize that we could apply a lot of these capabilities to service our clients who have both of those things and really kind of cover both sides of the ecosystem. So our first advertising product was a download product that enabled offline viewing of ad-supported streams. It was a direct sort of evolution of our SVOD product. Today, though, we are developing and bringing to market products that are really focused on addressing streaming problems and the failures that can occur during the ad load creation and ad load decisioning for AVOD assets, to make sure that we can produce better outcomes in terms of yield and fill rates, that while we're still leveraging the existing sort of ecosystem that all of our customers have built up around their ad stacks. So we don't sell ads, we don't buy ads, but what we do is we make the delivery and the decisioning around those ads more efficient. So
you're making the experience of users to be more akin to the traditional experience, because I'm looking into sort of FAST for the last 2.5 years or so that I've been doing it. I remember how radically different the ad experience was back in even like 2019 versus how it is now, right? Like with some of the platforms I would use.
Yes.
So your system is helping to smooth over the I guess differences, the evolution, and making it so that if you're flicking by, it's like the same experience.
So not right now for fast channels, because the structural process of delivering ads for fast channels is quite a bit different from compared to video on demand. So we're starting with video on demand and server-side ad insertion, because those are the two largest areas of the market, and they're growing rapidly. But what we're doing is essentially we're trying to enable better decisioning by shifting the time at which decisions can be made, so that the ad servers and the ad infrastructure have more clarity on what's going to be running in an ad pod, better orchestration of that ad pod, and ultimately drive better outcomes for the publishers in terms of filling their inventory and extracting more yield.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yep.
So it sounds like we've got. Well, actually, let me just get back to my notes. It sounds like you've got a bit of ad tech innovation, and that's where I'm going to really focus the next section on, because I think everyone here can talk a bit about ad tech innovations. And Nate, let's start with you. How does VIDAA plan to leverage the global scale of HighSense to capitalize on growing CTV industry? I guess that could be a part one, but I think take that one first, and then I'll see where that leads.
Okay, sure, Gavin, thanks. Going back to kind of the distinction between VIDAA as an operating system, we are still really excited about the opportunity with HighSense and following in that footprint. We think we're going to be able to provide global brands and local small, medium-sized business advertisers around the globe with a platform to reach audiences and deliver performance. I think if you compare this group, which is maybe more on the CTV side compared to some of our other panelists today, CTV is the underdog, being the newest entrance to compete in this TV audience building space. But our advantage is that we're not tied trying to save an existing audience revenue stream. So because of that, we can focus on performance. And performance is important, especially if you look at the top marketing platforms that are delivering for huge audiences today. So I think, as some of the other folks have already suggested, if you take a step back and look, where is the audience? If you watch that eyeball shift of video content over the past 10 years, if you look at the rise, of course, in mobile adoption, but also the rise in CTV, there's no argument that everything is increased in CTV, right? In the US, there have been something like a dozen content kings that are now new content sources for CTV. We've seen streaming hours rise from almost every SVOD or AVOD provider on our platforms and off of our platforms, right? You see active members of reported kind of streaming content sources rising at every quarterly results call. So all of that is exciting. It's exciting and good to be in a place that's growing, right? For VIDA, we really are excited with that global footprint, but also in 2022 to be emerging in the US as a strong CTV platform to be able to help create an audience and drive ROI for advertisers. So as a part of that, to the performance piece, we are excited about the opportunity.
So actually, you touched on some very interesting things there, and I think we could even put this to everyone in the group about CTV. It is growing, and it is great that you're right. Like you're not held to the shackles of the past, right? Like you don't have to just be like, well, this is the way things have always been done. Because I know in traditional TV, that's very difficult to be free of in some instances. What do you think? I mean, anyone can chime in at first, but I'll probably ask this of everyone. What do you think we can expect maybe in terms of changing the changes to the traditional TV advertising experience? Like I've heard people talk, even recently I had a discussion with someone and they were like, they're surprised that CTV as of yet hasn't radically altered the structure, the way that ads are served. Does anyone have any thoughts on what we could see that's different using CTV?
I'll chime in. And, from my perspective, we're making a lot of radical changes at Roku. I think a big piece of that is certainly the over commercialization of linear television that we've all experienced. We've all sat through as consumers. That probably drives us crazy, right? A 2-hour, hour and a half movie, 2-hour movie takes 3 hours on linear television. And that's not the case in streaming television. And certainly that's an area that I think we're really trying to change the paradigm in a big way is to reduce down that ad load. Again, consumers are willing to trade their attention for ads, but only to an extent, right? And that's a big piece, I think, of why there's been such massive cord cutting in general, is that they're trying to get away from that model. They want to be more in an on-demand model. They want to be able to pick and choose on their terms. And the other side of it, right, that I think we're all kind of getting towards, and I love this panel because we're all overseeing a very large data set around our streaming consumers, right? And when you start to get into what they'll pay more attention to is really important for both the consumer standpoint and for the advertiser standpoint. So a big piece of what we're doing also, and I think this probably holds true with a bunch of us here, is that we're also really trying to layer on top data that will better match up the right ads to the right consumer at the right time. And that's been incredibly valuable. We'll talk about ACR, we'll talk about all that, I'm sure, in a bit, but to me, that's where the big radical change is happening, is fewer ads, but more targeted ads to a consumer base that is looking for that and willing to trade their attention for it.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's finding that balance of the accurate messaging that's not creepy, right? Like you've seen maybe on mobile experiences, but being able to leverage data from your consumers so that there is a more appropriate and more effective overall strategy for how you're able to deliver advertising.
Yeah, I would just add on that as well is, the data piece of it, Jake. It's not just also about targeting the right ad to the right viewer, but you mentioned like at the right time and within the right experience. And so one of the things that I love about the streaming space is that we're not tied, in an on-demand world at least, because we do have streaming live too, but we're not tied to a programming grid. And so the ability to really stretch and test and experiment from an ad length perspective or interactive perspective, or thinking about the data sets that we sit on to understand, for example, on Hulu, 50% of all viewership happens in a binge environment, meaning they watch 3 or more of the same show in one sitting. And so we've sat on that data for a long time and partnered with brands and advertisers to really capitalize on that viewing experience. So when an individual is in their 3rd episode of a show, we can actually bring some value to them as the viewer, whether that's, a commercial-free ad experience or an offer. So, thinking about that viewer experience and we talk about going beyond the 30, but I just love the marriage of the math and the magic. So everything that we have with sight, sound, and motion, which evokes so much emotion from consumers, the brands still have the ability to capitalize on that, but they really can bridge the big screen to the small screen to drive some sort of action. And that's where we get the performance that really, every brand wants to back into some sort of a KPI. So from an innovation standpoint, that's what really excites me. And I think we're seeing a lot of that in the CTV space.
I don't mean to jump back in, but Lauren, I love the fact, I always say the art and science, but you're at Disney, you have to say magic. So the math and the magic is really, really important. And it is, because we do have this like crazy blank canvas in CTV that we don't have to follow the old ways of how it was done. And the innovation is a great point. And whether, I know Hulu's big with this, so are we with pause ads. We find that consumers pause stuff all the time. It's a great non-intrusive way to talk about an ad format. Certainly interactive ads, where we go in terms of TCOM and be able to buy things on your television set is another area. And so there's lots of stuff. And so I won't steal math and magic, but it is the art and the science around it that's really critical.
Yeah, to layer in on top of what Jake and Lauren are talking about, one of the areas that we've seen some budding innovation in is the contextualization of ads to the actual content that's being delivered. So there are companies that have computer vision that can analyze on a frame by frame basis the actual content, pass data to the advertiser. So let's say Ford's going to buy because they want to buy this user against this program. But if it's an action movie, maybe they show, the sports car or the SUV going over rocks in a more action oriented commercial versus a family show where they're going to show the SUV, like a minivan or a sedan. So the contextualization of advertising, and then also in talking with a number of companies that we're seeing, kind of going back to a degree what Hulu did in the past, which was a clear exchange of value between the consumer, which says, okay, I'm a consumer, I'm willing to watch a longer, more immersive ad to have no ads for the rest of the time that I'm watching this program. And that can be done in CTV, but in broadcast and traditional television, it's very, it doesn't, their systems don't work that way. So there's much greater degree of flexibility in terms of the creative execution and the immersiveness that we can deliver to users in terms of creative and the experiences that they can have. And then when we layer in things like what Jake is talking about with interactivity, you can do some really amazing things that blend the lines between content and advertising, that the consumer is engaging with the advertising because it's engaging content into itself.
I think another interesting way to look at it is ownership of the glass. So, as we move from TV buying, which was done on broad reach strokes, to having much more granular data sets to be able to buy on, I think this is just going to continue to move towards buying towards business outcomes. But when you start to just think about that glass in general, so that glass is becoming the homepage of the household. It's bolted to the wall. It's the center of entertainment for the family. And the way that we've used browser and search data over the last 2 decades to understand everything within our living environment, we are now going to be able to apply to TV. And we're just scratching the surface of the depth that we can take that data and the things that we can do to it. And everyone who is sitting here has some level of access to that, which is, really going to push this industry forward. I think in the future, all TV will be CTV, because why wouldn't you use data sets to, buy more sophisticated reach?
I think
100%. Sorry, 100%. I agree. And that was my reference to performance, right? In kind of my initial response. Specifically looking at these marketing platforms and looking at it from a marketer's perspective, right? TV is just one bucket that a marketer can reach an audience or be able to drive performance for their advertising, for their brands, right? So we have to be competitive, and certainly CTV allows us to be competitive because of the data, and competitive in a way that you can control frequency. particularly if you're a platform, right? You can control that frequency regardless of where a person might be consuming content, which becomes really interesting because people consume content from different sources, right? They might still have a cable connection, or maybe they become a cord cutter, but their second TV has an antenna. And they also have a Netflix or a Disney subscription, and 5 other sources, right? So being able to reach across that as a platform is really interesting.
Well, I think that a lot of what's been said, to me, it all holds true, and especially to what Katie said about why wouldn't CTV become the medium of choice? You know, the work that's being put in, I think, so far on AI and creating recommendations whenever you log into certain services, or will be happening within the next couple of years, to me creates like a tremendous opportunity for like even legacy linear. Like, why wouldn't you embrace a format where you can serve up what you know someone's going to want to watch? That creates a much better ecosystem for serving ads, because you're probably going to drive up engagement. And, you know, like, it's just, to me, it's like one of the frontiers that when they cross that, we're going to see like tremendous uptick in you know, there's discussions on, should we just call CTV TV? And at some point we will, right? It's just going to be regular, just how everyone refer. As a consumer, like, this is the thing as well, right? No consumer says, oh, I'm going to put on the connected TV and see what's on. They say they're going to put the TV on. That's
exactly right, Gavin. And I think that's what we're all following the consumer behavior of this, right? And to them, that there is no, they don't make that they don't discern between the two. It's about what content, what's the easiest way of doing this, where do I have the best experience? And, you know, that's a big piece of how we're looking at, is just redefining television and really representing all TV types. And right now, you know, we've been largely in the streaming space, but we're certainly now going to be introducing next year, you know, how to make national television, linear national television, addressable and target the right audiences as well. So that's kind of where it's all going.
So that's, I'm imagining, to do with your purchase of the Nielsen advanced video advertising unit, correct? And like, are you merging the two worlds together then?
Yeah, so I mean, you know, and Nielsen's been a great strategic partner. This certainly opens up the door to future strategic partnership with Nielsen. It's, you know, the purchase of the AVA portion of Nielsen opens up sort of two doors, and that's that first and foremost is, you know, third-party verified measurement capabilities. And, you know, first half of next year or mid next year, we'll introduce total ad ratings and really be, you know, and really use that on our OneView platform, which is our automated ad platform. And we'll be the first to deliver and offer up to advertisers a full TAR solution. We're also using this to help fuel a new MTA opportunity through Nielsen, and really being the first and fully integrated partner in streaming television to offer that up. So we're excited about that. Then the other side of AVA is really now owning that ACR tech. And, you know, I think a lot of us had mentioned it, and certainly Katie talking about owning the glass, right? And within all of the glass of these smart TVs is ACR technology. And that's really, really critical for how we then power linear addressable. And so what we'll be introducing probably mid next year is what we're now calling dynamic linear ads, as opposed to DAI. DAI seems a little confusing, and dynamic linear ads seems a lot simpler. And so we're working very closely with all of the network groups and publisher groups to help empower their sales teams to go out and sell their national footprint, not just the 2 minutes of local time, but the rest of those, whatever it is, 14, 16 minutes of national time, and make that addressable across Roku smart TVs. And a big piece of that, right, is that ACR technology that allows us to understand minute by or second by second what that glass is watching, either on linear or on streaming. And really importantly for dynamic linear ads, it's obviously what are they watching from a linear perspective. And so this is going to open up a whole new world for marketers, certainly thinking about how they make all of their TV expenditure really much more effective. They've gotten to lower funnel metrics, certainly in streaming television, Now they can do that and combine that with the linear footprint as well.
To me, selfishly, as someone who reports as best they can on the ways people are consuming content, I wish there was a way for everyone to sort of come together and just, just release combined data. Like, it doesn't have to be broken out, but just to kind of, everyone has controls of these little slices of data. And I feel like if we could get a unified data set somewhere down the line, it would be the most powerful tool out there, because everyone would, you'd have, I don't know, just my personal opinion as someone who'd kill for that data, I suppose. But it leads us on to the next section, which will probably be our last. We've got about 10 minutes left, and I want to talk about data with everyone here. So just because it's a great example of new streams of data that are available. We've never had this sort of data before, and the things that can be done with it will be groundbreaking. Scott, I have a question for you. So one of the singularities of the advanced TV advertising sector is the complexity of the ecosystem that's required for everything to actually work. How is Penthera managing that process of engaging of each of the key players, from publishers to ad servers and SSPs?
Yeah, thank you. So we recognize that the system is incredibly complex and arguably getting more and more complex, right? So if you are an advertiser and you're trying to deliver a campaign, you might be direct buying from Disney, you might be delivering through your DSP onto Roku, you might be using multiple different data sets. And so managing that process, both from the buy and the sell side, is incredibly complicated. Alongside that is, as a publisher, you're looking for how do I drive the best outcomes for the inventory that I have, and how do I control that inventory in the best way possible so that I can produce the highest yield, potentially lower the number of ads that I have to deliver in order to make my numbers, et cetera. And so, we are very cognizant of this, but we're also very cognizant of the fact that any of our clients that has an existing ad stack, trying to displace any of those elements of the ad stack is not only a Herculean effort, but it's also quite disruptive for how they operate. So we've intentionally built our solutions to be interoperable with the existing ad stacks, make sure that those systems are afforded better opportunities to make decisions by the work that we're doing. So we're informing them. We can bring forward better data transmission. And so our core point of integration, at least initially, is going to actually be with ad stitchers. So all of the ad decisioning happens outside of the ad stitcher. We're just taking the results of those decisions and then managing how that's consumed. But in the future, as we evolve our product set, there are clear paths for us to integrate and do, for example, out-of-band data passing to the ad servers and the supply side platforms, and then therefore onto the demand side platforms, so that they have better information when they're making decisions. And so for that, we're looking at partnerships, not only with those platforms, but also with companies like LiveRamp and the Trade Desk with their Unified ID 2.0, because to your point that you just made a minute ago, any of the buying that you're doing, whether you're buying from Roku and then you're trying to buy that same user on Disney or on NBC or someplace else, the challenge is that you're dealing with multiple different fractured data sets, and unifying those data sets or normalizing those data sets. While we're not going to be doing it, we can provide a mechanism for transmitting that data.
So making it easier for the buyer, right? So you don't have to learn this, because I can imagine it might be a system where you have to learn everyone's native system to be able to purchase across all of them.
Yeah, so ultimately, part of what needs to happen in the ecosystem, a lot of these capabilities are brought forward, and there's a lot of focus on the publishers because those are the big, companies, and they're sexy objects, and there's a lot of growth there. But making the buying process easier through, in our case, providing publishers with solutions that enable them to present their inventory more efficiently to market in a way that the buyers can consume more easily, whether it's through data passing or through other manipulations that we're capable of doing, makes it easier for the buyer to understand what they're buying. Ideally, through partnerships, as I mentioned, with like a LiveRamp, we could pass a common identifier that would flow across each one of their buying partnerships, each one of the publishers, so that they know that they're reaching the same user, and they will understand how best to communicate to that user, realizing that they just saw them 30 minutes ago on Discovery, and now they're seeing them right now on the Roku channel, as an example, and how to communicate and understand what we just served to them. So we're not hammering them over and over again with the same message, and maybe we can sequence messages to them.
Okay, that would be, yeah, I'm hoping to see that come to fruition soon, because I know it'll be a great normalizer. So we've got 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna do some quick questions to everyone in the group. Katie, beginning with you, how does the sale of native ad units work within LG Glass? Is there a quick way to answer that?
Yeah, totally. Well, you literally just, submit an IO. But no, when you look at our native glass, I think it's a really interesting ad unit, because what it is often the last unit someone is going to see before they go in a non-ad supported environment. So we do roadblocks that run on a daily basis, and you can get 100% share voice, high impact on our native glass and reach 10 million people in any given day. So that's huge from an advertising point of view, because a lot of these folks are going to go and watch Disney Plus or watch Amazon or watch Netflix and be unavailable. And so to have that ability to reach them through the native ad units, which are interactive, they're high performing, and then we can also really match that to the experience through connected TV and OLV as well, by doing stunts where we own every single screen in the household. I think one of the more interesting use cases, as someone who's been in the ACR space for 6 years, which is kind of crazy, is using our first party data sets and our ACR to target people who are brand new TV owners. So when they've taken that TV out of the box, if you're a media and entertainment client and you're trying to get new apps downloaded to your screen, that is the perfect time to do it. So targeting folks who have just bought that TV, so that whether it's Disney Plus or Hulu or Netflix or whatever the app may be, Paramount Plus, that user downloads it, and the native ads are great at driving that experience, but also owning the living room. And any given tentpole, Super Bowl Sunday is going to be huge in LG households. It's a fun space to be in, just because it really gives you that ability to take over the living room with the native glass.
I think it was very helpful. Thank you. I think we've got enough time for a 30-second quick fire round for everyone on, have we entered a post-pandemic TV consumption era? I guess through data you may see on your own platforms. Lauren, let's go with you first. Are we in a new era of TV consumption?
We're definitely in a new era of TV consumption. And I would say that people are obviously, as case in point, to the past 45 minutes we spent together, people are watching a ton of video. They're just engaging in different ways. And we do a lot to really understand these audiences through the research we've done with Generation Stream. We just launched a sports edition, and we specifically honed in on that because live sports are back, and they're back in a big way. And so how does the recipe work with live sports coupled with social to amplify that experience? So yes, I think we're in a new era, but it doesn't mean that people are watching less. They're just engaging in such different ways.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's just stuff is still being watched, just very different long tail, etc., and all sorts of new trends coming out.
And I'll follow up with that too, right? Because Roku is content agnostic, right? Every major content provider is on Roku, and our subscriber base is giant. And so we see a lot of things about what people are streaming. And so third quarter, we just released earnings, and we saw 18 billion hours of streaming happening across Roku platform, right? Like, so they might be watching Disney, they might be watching Netflix, they might be watching NBCU, you name it. So 18 billion hours of streaming, that's up 21% versus the prior third quarter, which was a tough comparable quarter. We were still kind of coming out of like the first iteration of this whole thing. And so that whole thing is continuing, right? And kind of what we've been talking about, just people have adopted streaming as their television source, and that's going to continue to grow.
Nate, I think, sorry, we've literally almost run out of time. Nate, final word to you on this.
Yeah, I think the answer is pretty clear from what everyone's already really highlighted. VIDAA is just in a unique position to only have up to grow from. So we're able to kind of learn from maybe some of our peers and colleagues who have really already advanced this space. And we're just excited to be able to capitalize on that continued growth of people watching the streaming content.
Well, I mean, it just about hits the clock perfectly. So thanks to everyone. Thanks to our panelists. Thanks to the audience. I know we had a ton of questions we didn't get through. It shows you what a deep space CTV is, and hopefully we can do more next time. But thank you again, everyone.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.